The snow had fallen so heavily that Christmas morning looked like a world painted in white. But inside the small, dimly lit apartment where Jason Harper lived with his 7-year-old son, Max, the day felt anything but magical. Jason stood by the window, holding a mug of cheap instant coffee, staring at the empty street outside. His life had changed drastically since the divorce a year earlier. Money was tight, loneliness was constant, and every holiday seemed to press deeper into the cracks of his heart. He tried to be strong for Max, but some mornings, especially Christmas mornings, felt heavier than he could bear. That was when he saw her, a young woman collapsed near the sidewalk, struggling to get up, her coat thin, her hair soaked with melting snow, her hands trembling even from a distance. And in that single moment, something inside Jason told him that this Christmas morning was about to become something he never could have expected. If you believe in kindness, hope, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories to you. Jason didn't think twice. He rushed outside, the cold biting at his face, and hurried toward the woman. She looked to be around his age, maybe early 30s, with soft features and eyes that carried exhaustion deeper than the winter chill. Her name, she said between shivers, was Grace. She had been trying to walk to a nearby shelter after losing her job and her small rented room 2 days before. She apologized repeatedly for collapsing, as though her suffering was an inconvenience to the world. Jason could see she had swollen ankles, cracked lips, and the unmistakable signs of someone who had been fighting silently for far too long. For reasons he didn't fully understand yet, he felt drawn to help her, not out of obligation but out of something deeper, something instinctive. Once inside the warm apartment, Max watched with wide, concerned eyes as Jason guided Grace to the sofa. Jason brought her a blanket, heated a bowl of soup, and tried to make conversation without overwhelming her. Max, innocent and welcoming, offered her his favorite holiday sticker book to help her feel better. Grace smiled weakly, and for the first time that morning, Jason realized how long it had been since he'd seen a genuine smile from another adult. There was something fragile, yet comforting about her presence, as though beneath her pain was a story waiting to be heard, and perhaps needed to be heard. As the hours passed, Grace slowly warmed up, physically and emotionally. The flickering lights on their modest Christmas tree illuminated her face as she finally gathered the strength to talk. She told Jason that she had spent most of her life moving from state to state, never finding stability, never having a real family. She had gone through a painful breakup that left her homeless just days before Christmas. The shelter turned her away due to overcrowding, and she'd been wandering, hungry and freezing, with nowhere left to go. Every word she spoke trembled with the weight of someone who had been strong for too long. Jason felt something stir inside him. He knew what it felt like to lose almost everything. After his divorce, he had gone through months of depression, losing his job and almost losing his home. Max had been the only reason he kept moving, the only anchor keeping him from disappearing into hopelessness. Hearing Grace speak felt like listening to a reflection of his own past pain, but hers seemed so much deeper. He wondered how she had endured it all alone. Max, in his childlike sincerity, kept her company, asking innocent questions that made her laugh softly, another sound Jason hadn't heard in his home for far too long. The apartment, small and quiet, felt strangely full that morning. Christmas, which had started as a reminder of everything Jason lacked, was slowly transforming into something unexpectedly meaningful. As daylight faded into evening, Grace tried to insist she should leave, but Jason refused. The weather had grown worse, and she could barely walk without wincing. He set up the small guest room, really just a storage space with an old mattress, but he wanted her to have a safe place to sleep. There was something about her vulnerability that awakened a protective instinct inside him. He gave her fresh clothes, prepared a warm meal, and did everything he could to make her feel human again, something he sensed she had been deprived of for far too long. That night, after she fell asleep, Jason sat at the kitchen table, thinking about the strange turn the day had taken. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Helping Grace reminded him of who he once was before life broke him down. And for the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a beginning. Over the next several days, Grace slowly regained her strength. She helped around the apartment, cooked simple meals, and grew close to Max, who adored her gentle kindness. Jason found himself looking forward to her smile every morning, to the calmness she brought into their small home, but he also sensed that she carried a secret, something she held tightly beneath her gratitude. One afternoon, while Max napped, Grace finally revealed the truth. Her voice shook as she confessed that she hadn't just lost her job and her home. She had been searching for someone she had been looking for almost her entire life. She explained that she had grown up in foster care, never knowing who her real parents were. Months earlier, she had finally received access to old case files, and inside those files was a name she had never expected to find, a name she had seen only once before, on a birth certificate. Jason Harper. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Jason felt as though the air had been pulled out of his chest. Grace continued shakily, explaining that all the documents pointed to the same truth. Jason was her older half-brother. They shared the same father, a man Jason barely remembered because he had abandoned Jason's family when he was just a boy. Grace had never known him at all. Jason sat there, frozen, overwhelmed by shock, disbelief, and an emotion so deep he couldn't name it. He had never known he had a sister. Never known someone out there shared the same blood, the same abandonment, the same pain. Suddenly, every moment from the past week, the connection he felt, the instinct to protect her, the sense of familiarity he couldn't explain, made sense. Grace broke down, apologizing, afraid Jason would reject her, afraid he would see her only as a burden. But Jason didn't move because his heart was already moving faster than his mind. He reached for her, pulling her into a tight embrace as tears filled his eyes. All this time, he had thought life had taken everything from him. He never imagined it had given him something back. Something precious, something he didn't even know he had lost. A sister, family. From that day forward, everything changed. Jason helped Grace find medical care, therapy, and eventually a job at a local community center. Grace helped Jason rediscover joy, purpose, and hope. Max gained an aunt he adored, and their small apartment slowly became a warm, lively home filled with conversations, shared meals, and the healing that comes from finally belonging somewhere. By the next Christmas, they had formed a bond so strong it felt like it had always existed. Jason realized that the universe had brought Grace to him not by chance, but by a miracle he never expected. The broken pieces of his life were slowly rearranging into something whole again. And Grace, lost, hurt, alone, had finally found the family she had spent her entire life searching for. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more emotional and inspiring stories to the world. Before you go, comment below. Family is a blessing.